big stories of the week has been the announcement by the Competition Commission and the cell phone network Vodacom that Vodacom will drop its data prices on some of its prepaid deals by roughly a third. In other words, if an internet bundle for 1 gigabyte costs you R1.40 tonight, by the 1st of April it will cost you just 99 Rand. There are also going to be certain provisions for people to receive free SMSs, and certain websites will be free to browse on as well. Most people have welcomed that. However, one organisation is not. Tebogo Kaas is the founder and convener of an organisation called Public Interest SA. He's with me now. Tebogo, nice to see you. Good afternoon.
Thanks, and thanks for inviting me.
What's wrong with cheaper data?
Well, it could be cheaper. Look, we say we appreciate the gesture and what Vodacom has done. No doubt we would like to encourage them and others to do more. And we do understand that most companies are also under pressure to turn a profit. But we still believe that that was a damn squib in terms of the announcement.
You say it could be cheaper. I mean, Vodacom, I can't imagine what their accountants were doing the night before this announcement was made, but they're lopping a third of what they charge on probably some of their most popular products. That's a lot of money they're going to be losing.
It is, but remember, it might very well. I also ask myself the same question: what were they doing the whole night? Maybe they're busy quarantining themselves from really tackling the issue of data pricing. But most importantly, much as they may have reduced a third of the cost, the point is from what? The baseline was very high. I mean, if you reduce a third of what has been exorbitant already, you may very well, just as well sit back and say, well, we've done something, but not enough, which is what we maintain. Because even with a reduction of 30 or 34%, they claim a headline on the headline pricing for the 1 gig, they still come up more expensive than telecoms if you compare. Well, obviously you won't compare apples to apples. If you take telecoms 20 gig, you probably pay about 250 rands for a 20 gig unlimited any day, anytime, plus 20 gig at night. And for what they have done, it still comes out very expensive. And we do not understand what the hype was all about when actually they know very well that it's not going to go far enough.
Okay, so I mean, are you suggesting that because Telkom and I think the other network is Rain, because their prices are lower, Vodacom should be lower too?
Absolutely. In fact, they should be taking a cue from the likes of Rain and Telkom. And especially because if you look at the history of Vodacom benefited from Telkom itself, from its founding. You'd recall that Telkom was the majority shareholder for some slith of hand. Somehow Telkom ended up losing Vodacom completely. And Vodacom was started on the infrastructure, on government infrastructure, public infrastructure. So there should be some shame on themselves that they can still even be commanding the kind of massive profits that they currently do on the public, when the public itself is so hard-pressed to make do with little income or no income in most instances and high data prices.
Right, Tebogo, I'm sure my heart and the heart of most of the public are with you that Vodacom could have done more, but let me be contrarian for a moment and argue against you. Vodacom, I'm sure, would say that when you choose a provider, when you buy a product, there are lots of different decisions about why you buy that product. It might be because you like the color of the car, it might be because you like the tires or the size of the engine, right? You're only looking at price. Reliability is another product, right? It's another part of the product. And then we look at coverage area. I mean, if you look at coverage area, Vodacom, surely, and I realize that MTN are probably listening and there's got a lawyer writing a letter already, but Vodacom has by far the biggest network, doesn't it?
It does. And who helped them get by far the biggest network? It was Telkom. Because when they started, they piggybacked on Telkom existing infrastructure to set up their base stations.
Sure, but here's the point, is that they now need to pay for it. Okay, so to maintain that infrastructure, to make sure, I mean, if you use Telkom and you look at their coverage map, you'll see that lots of parts of Gauteng are well covered. Vodacom covers much bigger parts of, say, Limpopo in the Eastern Cape that Telkom doesn't cover, and that's what you're actually paying for, is that coverage.
My argument is Vodacom is just as much complicit as anybody else, because if you would recall, there were introduction of underserviced area license holders, which Vodacom, MTN, amongst others, were complicit in ensuring that they do not survive or they are not viable, and they were they were basically run down, and they died on arrival. And we're saying if Vodacom had been conscious about all this and the need to ensure that this access to ICTs or data diffusion was actually enabled, and the digital economy that everybody is talking about today would have actually been better enhanced if Vodacom took a better attitude than they had all these years when they were profiting and actually extracting profits from South Africa and repatriating it to other jurisdictions elsewhere.
Okay, I mean, MTN is a South African-based company. It repatriates profits from Iran when it can, but it also repatriates profits from Nigeria when it can, and from many other places. I mean, it goes both ways. We might be losing money from Vodacom, but we're making money on MTN.
Of course, it cuts both ways, but let's focus on Vodacom, because MTN, we're still waiting for MTN. We'll deal with MTN when it gets out there. But for now, we're talking about Vodacom and the fact that they benefited from Telkom, and they ought to at least be paying some reparation, if I may use the word reparation, to all South Africans to say, look, with goodwill, they believe that they owe this country something and they can do much, much better. And perhaps that would set the tone for MTN and others who would follow after them. But when they see what Vodacom has done, and considering all the things that I've just said now about government having helped Vodacom to start, they're going to say, but government never helped us as MTN. Government never helped us as we never benefited from telecom infrastructure, legacy infrastructure, to get a leg up. Now, why do you want us to still perform the same way as Vodacom?
Okay, we've got the legacy as one issue. Here's a question that the Competition Commission, so far as I know, has not actually dealt with, which is that Vodacom is now going to make less money than it did. And that means that for the last 5-6 years, let's call it, let's just use that period as reference, it's made a lot more profit than it should have. Are you suggesting it should be some of that profit that gets paid back?
They may very well be making less money now than they do. And the problem is because there's no access. It's all about volume. The more people come on board, you're onboarding more people, the more the pricing you can be able to afford to reduce the pricing even more. But because they made sure that the ICTs or technology is not available in rural areas, the users could have covered that. And they're not doing enough to make sure that LTE and other coverage, and now they're blaming spectrum availability. But all these years, you ask yourself, what have they been doing with the little spectrum that they've squandered or they currently have? Nothing.
In the middle of all of this, so this is the Competition Commission. What they did is they made a finding. They said, we're taking you to the tribunal if you don't drop your prices by up to 40%. They got out the big stick and it worked. Okay, that forced Vodacom to blink first, and one presumes that MTN are going to follow. In a way, economically, perhaps they don't have much choice. Is the Independent Communication Authority of South Africa, Kaas, are they missing in action in this?
Their silence is deafening. And talking about big stick, I wonder what big stick that was, because quite honestly, it's nothing. I don't think Vodacom will feel that the pain at all, or very much. And yes, ICASA has got a role to play. Remember, ICASA are custodians of licenses, and through the licensing obligations, there are certain performance requirements of license holders to contribute towards access to ICTs. USA also, Universal Service Fund, through the Universal Service Fund, we ask ourselves, what have they been doing? We've been talking about the Millennium Development Goals, which we subscribed to during the times of former Minister Matsepe Kasaburi. We ask, have we attained any of those? No. We've got schools that still have got no connectivity at all. We've got entrepreneurs who struggle to get access into the supply chain of big corporates. It is not only government sites where entrepreneurs want access to, but we've got NGOs, you've got corporates who also got supply chain marketplaces, which entrepreneurs ought to access. But to come back and say, look, we'll do something on Facebook, or to access this and this, you can get it for free or cheaper, I think leaves a lot to be desired.
Tebogo, Kaas, thanks very much indeed. Looking forward to the MTN announcement when it comes. Thank you very much indeed. Founder and convener of Public Interest SA. Staying with Vodacom, the Please Call Me inventor Nkosana Makate claims the telecoms giant is intentionally hiding the information regarding the income the company made through the Please Call Me service.